Hello and welcome to episode number, I'm going to mess it up, Steph, number 15,
Oh,
15 of the
15.
Tweedle Eat, Tweedle Run podcast, where Steph and I document our Run Disney adventures at both Disney World and Disneyland parks. I'm Court and this is Steph.
Hello, and as always, you can interact with us on Instagram at TweedleEatTweedleRun or reach out to us by email at tweedleeattweedlerun@gmail.com. We are on YouTube where you can watch our smiley faces. And if you like us, hit that subscribe button. We're also on Spotify and Amazon Music. Look for us on those platforms. On today's episode, we are finally wrapping up the Halloween half chills and thrills excitement where we will chit chat about the 10K race and our my first half marathon experience. So yeah, it was a
Let's dive in. Yeah, we have two races to talk through, logistics and how everything went. So why don't we start with the 10K since I actually ran that with you, and then you can tell us all about the magic that was running your first half
my
marathon.
first half marathon.
So
Yeah,
for the 10K, so this is the one that so Steph and I both ran this, and our friend Nat ran this, and it was an exciting time for Nat. She got to enjoy the thrills that was trying to get a race bib after a race is sold out, using Telegram. And it's so funny because I definitely did not think she was going to get one when she said, "Well, I'm going to come, if I can get a race bib." I'm like, "Okay, well, then you're not coming because there's no chance you're going to get one because it's like, yes, you've had success, Steph, but it's not easy, right? Like you still have to be
no,
really paying attention."
you do have to be paying attention, and because it sends notifications to my watch, I always seem to know. So even right now, we're in just pre-wine and dine season, and it's been going nuts. Like there's been so many available for wine and dine. So had I not been hidden from my own surprise birthday experience, I probably would have been able to have snatched Nat and Paula bibs for that matter. But
Yeah.
I
We
didn't
did
know.
we did have a few close calls of almost getting one for Paula, but I would get to the final screen and get all her information in, and then I'd click to, enter it, and it would say sold out. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why do you let me get so far? Like,
It's
let-
because it's nasty that way.
I know. You don't
But no,
know until you actually click to pay for it, whether you actually
well, and
got the bib or not.
that's the thing, and this is where the way that I was successful getting bibs for us was that as soon as I got any notification, I just tried and refreshed until something would come up, and then I would be the first person just to click in, and then that's how I got lucky. And where how I see how they pop up now, it's really easy. Like that's the best way to do it. As soon as you get any notification that any bibs are available, just start clicking until you get something that says closed. So
Yeah.
that's my race tip for people trying to use Telegram to get a race bib.
So yeah, so she was successful, and then I had the fun task of so our costumes for this race, we dressed as the cast members from Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. They were children's size 10T costumes that Steph had found on AliExpress.
Yes.
So I cut mine down the side so that I could get it on, and added some, I added some ribbons to like tie it on, which honestly I definitely didn't need to do in hindsight. Like
No.
it fit fine without those, because you didn't do that and it was fine.
Nobody noticed that my sides were open to the
Yeah.
skirt basically. So
Plus also given it was like roasting hot that day still,
yeah.
even at 5 a.m. Everyone was trying to wear as little clothing as possible. But so I had to rush to try and order one for Nat because I wanted her to match us. You had also made us bat
Headbands,
headbands,
because
which
that's what they wear.
did you name yours? Because I named mine because you told me I had to, and nobody
Yes.
asked me the name of my
I
bat.
know. I was shocked nobody named, but I think it's because we were at Disneyland and not Disney World. Because
Maybe.
it's not a thing at Disney World, right? Because they have Oogie Boogie, or sorry, it's not a thing at Disneyland because at Disneyland they have Oogie Boogie
And
versus
they're
at Disney
and they're
World,
what they wear, what the cast members wear is different.
it is different.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
what was your bat's name? Just so that,
you
the internet
you
verse knows.
my bat's name was Eugene.
Yeah. My bat's name
Yeah,
was Betty.
yeah. So
Betty the
that
bat.
we had names ready in case anybody asked,
I
and we
know.
had our cast member tags that I made too.
You did. So I ordered Nat her outfit. It told me it was going to arrive on September the 8th, which was definitely not in time before we had to leave. So I was like, okay, well, we'll figure it out. And so I was like, I'm not going to be able to get her the bat and the name tag, but whatever, she'll at least have the costume, maybe if it shows up. And it did. It showed up in time. And it was so funny. I got a notification that it was at a center like an hour away from us, and it still said delivery on September 8th. And all I think is like, can I just go pick this up? Like I'm an hour away. I need this. Anyways, and it showed up literally the next day. So clearly the estimated shipping was incorrect. But I'm so glad we did, because what exciting thing happened to us, Steph, in our adorable costumes.
In our adorable costumes, we made the Run Disney Instagram reel.
Ooh, we're famous. We're so famous. Yeah,
It's
that was
true.
that was very exciting to make the Instagram reel, because I feel like some of our other costumes have been really good and we never
I
make this
agree.
reel.
I know, and as we ran through, it was as we were running through Toontown. I saw the camera and I remember like waving to the camera, and sure enough, like a friend of mine happened to check out the reel and messaged me the next day and was like, "I think this is you," and it was. So
Yeah,
it was pretty
super
cool.
cool. Yeah, I'm glad we made that. So just to talk logistics, so this morning we were up at 4 a.m. Well, I mean, you were probably up at
I don't
2
know,
or something
two, because
stupid.
I don't sleep.
But the nice thing with the Disneyland races compared to Disney World, and because we were staying at Pixar Place, we could walk to the start line. We didn't have to wait. We didn't
Yes.
have to get a shuttle. Now they did have shuttles, not from Pixar Place, but we could have gotten on a shuttle at the Disneyland Hotel. But honestly, it really wasn't that long to walk. Like we got up
I
at
really,
4, we
yeah,
walked over at 4:30, and we were there like what, 15, 20 minutes to get
which
like
was
from our
perfect.
hotel over there.
And it was a nice walk, and you're like walking with other people, and there were other racers out. Like it's not like you're walking in complete darkness by yourself. Because I remember when we first signed up for my race, that was a little bit my concern, that when I was like looking at how I was going to get to the start, especially when um well, I guess I still ended up doing the half by myself, but this was even before you had a bib at all. And I thought I was going to be doing this all by myself, that I was
Yeah.
like, oh, how am I going to get from where our hotel is, like all through the park across the other side of the start? Like I was debating taking an Uber. And now after doing it, I'm like, no, you can just walk. It's super easy.
Yeah. Yeah. You could have taken a shuttle, but I liked just getting up and going and not having to worry about like we need to be up by a certain time to catch the shuttle, because they only run until a certain time, and we were totally fine. Now we were in this was another one of our fails of, when you're
Oopsies.
trying to get the bib so fast, you just enter it as quickly as you can. And so I was in corral E, which
Yeah.
was the second last corral. There were F corrals in this race. So I think you were
I
B.
was B because it was linked with my chills and thrills one. So
Yeah.
because I had a proof of time for the half, then it got linked to the two of them together.
And I
So
can't remember. Do you remember what Nats was?
I think Nat was also B,
Yeah. So,
but you
but so
always
that
have to
we,
go with the
yeah,
lower corral.
so
So
that we could run together. And we were pretty much by the time we got there. So we got there just before 5 o'clock, so about 5:50. And we went to the bathrooms. They had a bunch of porta potties set up over there. So we all took a bathroom break because we're like, whatever, we're not in a big rush to get into our corrals. Knowing how quickly all the 5K ones went off, it's like, yeah, sure, we'll just join the back. Like, I don't care if we're at the back of the corral necessarily. Um, and I would say we were pretty near the back of the corral, right? Like there weren't,
yeah, we were right at where there was a gap between us and like the next sort of stream, like the F's to, I think there was a G corral as well. And
okay.
remember we were like in that weird little gap space.
Yeah, yeah. So our corral ended up going off at 5:24. So we really didn't wait around too long, because I mean, we were there pretty much at 5 o'clock. Sorry, I think I said 5:50, but we were there around 4:50, and we went off at 5:24. So it was pretty good. We saw the Corral A go off, and they were pretty efficient. This race was better than the
Yes.
5K in terms of
Significantly less congestion.
spacing. Yes. So because
Yeah.
so this one and the half, you started on the road outside of the parks. and then you ran into the parks. Now, the 10K race, the nice thing is that most of it was through the parks, with the exception of the sort of start and end, because it start and ended outside of the parks. But it was really nice to have like more space at the beginning. So we were able, but I will say the problem is when you're two people and you're trying to like follow one person. Okay, it's
Doable.
tricky, but it's
It's
doable.
yeah.
For three of us, oh my goodness. Like there were times where it's like, let's say you were leading and Nat's
Hmm.
dodging to follow you, and I'm so far behind because I'm like, I can't like
I
Nat
can't
could
get through
sometimes
this
squeeze into
next.
that space that
Yeah.
you just took, and then now it's done. And I at one point I just like flipped my music on. I was like, I'm just running this race by myself because like I can't even like it's not even worth trying to like sprint and then stop and then sprint and then jog. And so
Well, and I felt like I should have had like a helmet on with like a little rear view mirror just to kind of see where you guys were. Cause I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And I purposefully like just kind of ran and frolicked in a way because I was like, okay, I want to like do it all together and I don't want to just like take off like I did in the 5K in my excitement of the 5K. So I did. I just like followed along, sang the many choruses of the Halloween song from The Nightmare Before Christmas because it seemed to be always playing on the same spot and repeat over and over again.
yeah.
Uh, but it was a much better setup because there it was busy enough that I couldn't sprint out of the gate as I have a habit of doing, but I also didn't feel like I had nowhere to go.
Well, I also and part of that I think is because people were running. Now, were they
Mhm.
running fast? Not necessarily,
No.
but they were at least running. I think my biggest issue for the 5K, and again, as we've talked about, we were definitely in the wrong corral. And so I don't really like
So,
I don't have an issue with the people who were in that corral choosing to walk, but I think the frustration for us is that they were literally just going to walk the whole thing. So they started walking, and we're like, but I would like to run. You're not even like running. So
yeah,
this one also, there was more space, and the majority of people were actually trying to run it. Now, probably like a walk run for a lot of them, which
sure.
great. Like
Which is
their goal is
common.
to finish, and that's
Yep.
awesome. Yeah, exactly. And I like how accessible these races are to people because it encourages people to get fit and, participate. But for us, yes, being in the correct corral is going to be key for the the next three race weekends.
Which I think we should be fine with because now I've gone back and rechecked everything and I'm like, okay, we should be okay.
I may
As
have
long
to
as
check mine.
yeah,
Well,
I
well,
went back and looked.
the ones where you have to do proof of time, I'm less concerned about because like you said,
Yeah,
or well, for the last one that we're doing, since you and I are both doing the challenge, basically we'll have to do a proof of time for the 10 miler or can submit a proof of time. So then you'll just get the same corral for all three races, which is way
which
easier.
so much easier.
Yeah, because you just have the one race bib. So, you just have to run all the races. It's so much easier, Steph.
So much easier. So much easier for the logistics of things.
Yes.
I think it's
So
easier.
it was good. I think we just about killed Nat towards the end. She
Just a little bit. She was pretty done at the end, but she did fine. Like
she did great. Well, and I think she had said to me because I mean she had been running, but
she
by the
had
time
been.
she got her race bib, well, it was like 4 weeks to the race. So she wasn't
Yeah,
like training for a 10K. She'd been mostly doing 5K races. So she said like it was just she was able to complete it, but not necessarily like complete it and be like, oh, that was great. And I can keep
yeah.
running and do it again. And
Well, and the funny thing was is that because Nat and I follow each other on Strava, I did notice that she was running more, but didn't think anything of it. I just thought, well, maybe Nat just decided to start running, not
well,
oh, Nat's coming with me on my birthday run.
and you had posted on Strava about your run
Yeah,
preparing for this, your last long run. And what did Nat? You didn't see it, but I thought it
no,
was so funny. What did she post? She
she po
replied to it.
I can't remember now, but she said it was like something.
I think
She
it,
posted something.
it
Do you remember what she
yeah,
posted?
I'm pretty sure it was like, oh, what weekend is your race again? Or something like that. Like, good luck.
Yeah,
When's the race again? Or like pretending like she like doesn't
she knew
even
nothing.
remember.
Yeah,
Steph didn't actually see the comment, so it was pretty funny afterwards that she pointed it out to you. But yeah, so we ended up finishing in just over an hour. So we crossed the finish line, well, an hour and 25 minutes after the race started, but around 6:25 we finished. and did pretty well. I'm pretty impressed with us, Steph. So we
We
looked up
did.
just before this, we were looking up the race results. And so I once again beat Steph in the race.
As we tried to cross the finish line holding hands, somehow her ticker got ticked off before mine did.
Yep, that's right. I always just stick my neck out, I guess, at the very end just so I can beat you.
Or
So
your
I
or your
finished.
hips,
I know my big stride at the end. I
I
finished
guess.
34th and Steph a measly 35th in our age category.
Yes, because now that I've been bumped up to that age category.
I know. Now we're in the same age category. But that was out of 977 runners in our age category. So I did the math, and that's top 3.5% of runners. So not too shabby stuff. That
No,
was
not too
pretty
shabby.
fantastic. Clearly, runners who deserve to not be in Corral E.
Yes,
Disney,
incorrect.
if anyone's listening, stop putting Steph and Court in the terrible corrals.
It makes us frustrated.
Just a scooch. And actually, Nat finished 18th because she's in the next age group up. So she actually, despite finishing with us, she in her age category did better. So
So almost dying was worth it.
almost time was worth it. Exactly. So we finished, we got our medals, we got all the snacks and everything, and then we just walked back. And we've already talked about the rest of that day, but it was pretty easy, all
Yeah,
in all. And I really enjoyed where we stayed. I thought it was,
so
it
did
was
I.
convenient for the parks, and then even for the races, like I didn't feel like it was too far. And it was kind of nice actually walking back, to just get the lactic acid out and just like kind
Yeah.
of keep yourself moving and
The
cool
only
down.
o- the only minor small annoyance, and this is only because we had all of our pieces of flair coming back with the medals and things like that, was because when we walked back, we walked through downtown Disney and having to go through the security line and like take off everything and then like carry it all back in. Like it was a minor annoyance having to do it, less so on any other day than the last day when I had all the pieces of flair.
True.
But that was like my only complaint.
And I will say, this is still my tip that I myself have not used, but keep thinking I'm going to use and keep forgetting to use, is to bring a bag with me. Like just like a small plastic bag that I could just fold up really small and put in like the pocket of, my shorts. And like
Yeah.
I never remember to do it. And it just, but then you get so much stuff at the end. And I'm always like,
Where am I gonna put
oh,
it all?
I don't have enough arms. And then like so I was carrying my box. They give you a box that's full of like,
Treats.
pretzels and fake cheese and whatever. So I was carrying my box under my arm, but it was so hot and I was so sweaty. My box like disintegrated under my
I
arm.
do remember that. It was
Like it
gross.
wasn't it wasn't even a box anymore. It was
No,
just like
it was all like
pieces
falling
of like
apart
sweaty paper
stuff. Yeah.
mush. So yeah. I did remember though ahead to bring you a bag when
You
we
sure did.
came to watch you finish your half. So why don't we think we finished the 10K? It was
Yep.
successful. I did 2 out of 3 races. So,
You're just
gearing
working
up,
our way up there.
getting there.
Getting
So why
there.
don't we dive in now to your half? So this is Steph's first
This
ever
is my first
half
ever half
marathon.
marathon. And it was kind of a big deal because like I never in my wildest dreams would have I considered myself a marathon like a half marathon runner. Like
Yeah.
yes, I've run, but even before I ran the 10 miler, like a 12K was like a pretty substantial run for me forever. So then going into this half marathon, I was kind of like, all right, maybe I'll have a goal of finishing it under 2 hours. And then it ended up being super, super stupid hot. So I was like, this is probably not a time to try to really push myself. So I got up at I think 4. I don't know. I still didn't sleep. That's how I would go. Managed to not wake up anybody except Nat. Nat was the only one who kind of stirred as I
Yeah.
was getting ready.
I didn't wake up until 6 a.m.
Yeah.
That is
So
when my body was like, okay, you can stop sleeping now. So like I woke up and was just like, oh, like because I was reminder in the same bed as Steph.
yeah.
No, nothing.
Nope,
Dead. Dead to
nothing.
the world.
Absolutely dead. And yeah, so Nat was the only one who like knew I left. But I went in my full Oogie Boogie princess glory with like a little Oogie Boogie hat and my little fluffy green dress. And I had to snap a picture as I was walking through downtown Disney outside of DCA because Oogie Boogie was on top of DCA laughing
Of
at everybody.
course. Yeah.
So that was like pretty awesome. And then I got to the start line, or I got to the race area, which was the same race area as the 10K. Went to the bathroom, chit-chatted with some people. That's the actually thing that's nice. Even if you're going by yourself, as I was, people are super friendly. If you have a fun costume, they'll talk to you about your fun costume. And so people did. They're like, "Oh, your costume's really cool. Did you make it?" I'm like, "I half doctored something I got on AliExpress." And they're like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I was in Corral B for this, and the setup for Disneyland is very different than Disney World. So at Disney World, when you go to the corrals, you like there's multiple entrances to each corral section, but Disneyland, I thought it'd be more like a whole line that you kind of get in at the back. So when I first got there, I was like, well, I've definitely missed my chance to get into actual Corral B. But then I saw that there's like an emergency side hatch that you could like go into the side of the corral. And so as a result, even though I showed up probably at like 10 to 5 by the time I got into the actual line, I got like the secret side hatch and ended up at the front of Corral B. So
Sweet.
it was awesome. Like I got off,
So
had no issues.
I guess as long as you get there before the race starts, basically
Yeah.
in your experience, they let you into your correct corral. Like they didn't cut it off, or did you see at
No.
any point that they cut it off before the race went
Nope.
off?
Well, and like where like this little side hatch was into Corral B, they had like a lineup started of people. So I just got into that line, and then once I got into that line, as soon as the wheeled racers went off and then Corral A went off, then I just got slotted in, and I was like very close to the front of Corral B.
Well, and
So
the other thing to mention, and I think the half was probably the same way, but with the 10K, they, while they let the corrals out, they let the whole corral go together.
yeah.
Whereas in Disney World, each corral is that much bigger, I guess. And so they'll let like a third of the corral go and then they wait. And then they set off fireworks and then the next third goes, or however much they've split it up. How did you find for the
It
half?
was the half was similar to the 10. So I think they maybe split up at halfway and that was it. Like they let half of A go and then there was a slight pause because there's less fanfare. Like
Yeah.
with Disney World, they set off fireworks every time. Because Disneyland is right in the middle of Anaheim, they can't do that. So
Yeah.
there isn't they do a countdown each time, but there's no big fireworks. So there would be the countdown and then the crowd would just go. So I remember just like trying to time it, being like, okay, I won't get a picture of this, but I will just start going. And I will say this day it was hot. Like
I
they
think Sunday, because this was the Sunday, I'm pretty sure I saw that Sunday of all the days we were there was the hottest day
in the
of the
more it,
weekend.
it was the hottest day in the morning. So the
Yeah,
peak
but for the whole
afternoon
day too. Yeah, yeah.
was it the hottest in the afternoon? Because I thought
Yeah,
the Friday was. Anyways,
yeah.
for sure the morning because they had warnings out. Like I showed up at the race right when they were talking about okay, it's a yellow day because they have a rating of green, yellow, red, and it was a yellow day, which meant extra hydration. They had extra hydration stations. They had Jeff Galloway pacers on the course, and they were all paced to go 15 minutes slower than the original intended pace, just to try to keep everybody to have a good, safe pace. And they emphasize that now is the time to embrace the joy of running. You're not
Yeah.
here to win the race, you're here to have fun. So as soon as they said that, I'm like, yes, I must embrace the joy. Because I was like, I don't really know how this is gonna go. So the whole goal of doing it under 2 hours, I was like, yeah, I think I just at this point want to have fun. So I started the race at 5:04, and the first part of the race is exactly like the 10K. So you start out on the streets, you snake your way into Disneyland, you run all throughout Disneyland, and kind of like loop through DCA and everything. And I really took the time as I went through the parks this time to actually do character stops because we didn't really do character stops in the 5K or the 10K. And I knew based on reading reviews of what the half was like for the Disneyland half marathon that happens in January, that all the character stops and everything happens in the first 10K. There's not really anything afterwards. So I was like, all right, if I'm going to make up time, I can make up any other time later on. So I stopped and got my pictures. I got a picture with May May because I had to represent the Canadians, and it was the longest line I've ever stood in for pictures. But I was like, no, I'm gonna do it. And there
Got to
were
do
like
it.
three other Canadians in line ahead of me. They had shirts that said, "If found, please return to Canada." So I was like,
Cute.
that's pretty good. Um, but it was fun, like just really embracing running through the parks, taking in all the feels of Disneyland, because really like this is going to be the only time that I'm really ever running through Disneyland, even though I'll be
Yeah.
doing Disney World a bunch of times coming up. I had to like kind of soak that in, which was great because as soon as I ran out of the park, I was then running in the wilds of Anaheim. And the very first thing you do is you run up a hill over a freeway, which
Fun.
yeah, doesn't sound super exciting, but at least as I was doing it, dusk was just starting to break. So like as I'm like coming up over the crest of the freeway, it was actually beautiful. Like you could see palm trees in the distance, you could see mountains in the distance, and the sky was like this purpley reddish color. So I stood in the middle of the freeway because the road was closed and took a picture like with that in the background. So that was kind of a fun thing to do. And then just ran through what I've dubbed the wilds of Anaheim, being a lot of just open like streets. Ran past a bunch of houses. There were actually people outside of their houses cheering for people with
Oh,
signs and
that's
stuff like that.
cute.
It was very cute. And like there were gas stations and fast food places that were running by, and people were standing on the corner. Like I remember at the one corner I ran around, a guy was out handing out licorice to runners as they were going by, like with a sign to cheer them on. So like that was kind of cute too. There wasn't a whole lot in terms of like the biggest difference between this and when you're running outside of the parks at Disney World, because Disney World can shut down the highways. They have more bathroom stops, they have bands playing, they have character stops, they have different things that happen, and there's just none of that. I think
Yeah.
up until you get to where the Mighty Ducks play, there's maybe two high school marching bands and like one steel drum band that was kind of playing. They had but like several water stops, one food stop, and then they'd have porta potties usually where the foods and water stops were. But a lot of what I ran through was just like industrial parkway. So it wasn't busy and I felt safe. Like there was never any worry that I'm like, ooh, I'm running through weird parts of Anaheim. But no, that was great. Um, and then I got to where the Mighty Ducks play, and they had cheerleaders out, and Wild Wing was out cheering everybody on. And they had like, if any of our friends know Mexico Maddie, they had a whole row of Mexico Maddies dancing on the
Those are
side.
those are the
The
inflatable men that
car wash men things.
flail their arms
But they were
outside of like tire stores and such.
they were little mini ones. Like they were probably instead of being like 15 feet tall, they were probably like 6 feet tall. And there was like a whole row of them all in orange dancing and cheering. And I had a guy who was probably like 16 years old because there were a bunch of teenagers cheering us on in Mighty Ducks gear. And they're like, go Peter Pan. I'm like, I'm not Peter Pan. I'm Oogie Boogie. And they're like, oh, Oogie Boogie. So that was like the most exciting part. And that's probably at like marker 8, like the 18-mile marker. So like, or not the 18-mile, the 18K marker. So like it's getting like up there at that point. So then ran through there, and then you got to run through where the Anaheim Angels play, and they had the Anaheim Angels announcer calling out everybody's name as they ran by.
That's fun.
So like that was kind of a cool thing to do. And they would call out our names as we did that. I snapped a picture in there. And that was also where, as I was coming through, the sun was coming up. So I got to see like a really cool sunrise, which was pretty awesome. And it's also where I watched somebody bail right in front of the first aid
Oh
tent,
no. Well,
which
I
was like,
mean, if you're gonna bail somewhere, I guess right in front of the first aid tent is
Yeah. And it was one of those like as she was going down, I was like, no.
oh
But then they were like they swooped in and I think she ended up being okay.
oh
And then
good.
once you're through there, you run through like this last turn, which I feel like is the same area where all the like the scene in Greece where they're racing is filmed, like the scene in Fast and the Furious where they're racing down like an abandoned pipeline is filmed.
Like
So
it looks
you
like almost like aqueducts or something, right?
yes.
Like or
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what those are, but you're
exactly.
right. They're in like all these films. The Italian Job, they drive
Yeah.
through there too. Yeah, there's so
It's
many.
there's so many, and I ran through that, so that was pretty neat. And then as I was coming back into where everything was, it was kind of cool because like there's a lot of excitement. And as I'm like turning around the bend, just before I saw these guys waiting for me because Court was like yelling my name, I got to high five Jeff Galloway himself. So that was pretty
Cool.
awesome because he's always at the last race and there was nobody by him. So I was like, sweet. I will high five Jeff Galloway as I go by. So it was fun because as soon as I saw Court, I knew they were there, and it kind of gave me that like extra last little bit boost to finish her off. And then I crossed the finish line, and I was done. Yay!
And she did it.
I did
You,
it, and I ran the whole thing minus waiting for Maymay. But
yeah. Well, and it's funny because like I mentioned, I didn't wake up till 6. And then I wasn't sure if Nat or Paula were awake. And I was like, well, we should probably try and go over. So Nat was awake. And then we were going to go over. And then turned out Paula was awake. So then we are like, okay, well, do you want to come? She's like, yeah, I'll come. And anyways, so and then we stopped at Starbucks and then it took forever for Nat to get her drink. And I was like, people, we are not going to make it in time because Steph is going to be done around 7. And
yeah,
so I think we got there at like 7:05 and I made Nat power walk. Paula, as discussed in our last episode, does not have a power walk setting. So she's like, just go. I'll catch up, whatever. And so anyways, she did get there though. I think she saw you finish too because
you
it
did.
ended up
Yep.
because you didn't finish until it's because you didn't start until like 5:04 and then you had some stops like it even though you still finished within like that sort of roughly 2 hour goal that you had by the time you were crossing the like official finish line it was like 2:15 or something so like
Yeah. So my clock time, my net time was 2:09, which was still pretty respectable. So that was
great yeah
that was good. It
and
earned
I was going to say, and your finish, we looked it up,
yes,
was
we did look it up.
39th out of
There you go.
1,400 runners, Steph.
So
1,400, yeah,
it's pretty good.
for your first
It also
half.
it's true, and it earned me my coast to coast for
Yay.
running the half and then running the 10 back in the spring. So that's pretty cool. So I had all the pieces of flair on me because I had my Chills and Thrill medal, I had the half marathon medal, and then I had the coast to coast medal. So
Yeah, yeah. And I brought her a bag. So, I mean, real
yes,
MVP was me.
it's
Um,
true.
and I will say, like, so they were really successful races. We got done, I think, in the times we wanted to get done, and costumes were on point. I will say, like, compared to the Walt Disney World races, the costuming and pageantry and it's not on the same level. Like if
No,
you've done the Disney World races, going to Disneyland is very like,
lackluster.
yes, that's a good word.
Like
Yeah,
I really felt, and don't get me wrong, I love California. California always has like a special place in my heart, but I just felt like Disneyland, they're too cool for school
I
when it comes
know.
to the races. They just don't embrace the cosplay portion of it in
Yeah.
the same way that
And you mentioned about like the stopping for characters. I also felt like there weren't as many character options, or like they would have sort of a scene set up, but not a
hmm
character, or they'd have a
yeah.
character, but then there'd be no PhotoPass photographer. So it's kind of like, well, if I stopped, I just have to take a selfie, I guess, or get someone else to take my picture. And there weren't that many. Like it just,
Well, even one of the stops, they had cast members ready to take your cell phone and take pictures of with you and Jack and Sally. And Jack and Sally just like kind of like moved back and forth in between three different groups. So that's
yeah,
that's what they did. So they were just like, you have to be ready with your phone. So like it's a great picture and that all turned out fine. And the guy I had was awesome, but it's nice to have the photo pass, which then makes sense as to why if you signed up for any of these Disney races, photo pass was included.
yeah. Well, and I was going to say the photo pass you did get, whereas they did have all the people on the race taking your photos. So
Yes,
that was similar. And so that was nice. We did get a lot of race photos of like
we did.
the three of us, in the 10K and then yourself in the half. So they did have that. So that was nice. But overall, I loved the 10K running through the parks, because even in Disney World, you tend to still run on a lot of highways. So like
You do.
terms of route, that was probably one of my favorite ones. But overall, I think the Florida races are a little more, there's a lot more going on.
Well, yeah, and so we'll see what happens with the next one, especially because
Hmm.
when I do the dopey and I have to run through all four parks on the marathon.
See how that goes. Stay
We'll
tuned, everyone.
stay tuned.
Oh dear. Well, until next time then, Steph.
Wheel out.